right. So today we have Kate Eischen with us. She's a brown shirt in Muay Thai. She's the current department head of Muay Thai in Centennial, formerly the kids department head there, as well as a few other positions over her time there, and she can tell us more about that. I don't want to butcher it. And Kate, the big news is that Kate is going to be the future general manager of Centennial as well. We will get into more of the GM position and all the cool and exciting things that are coming along with this. But we're going to jump right in and just see, Kate, how are you today? How's it going?
I'm doing
Thanks
great.
for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm psyched to sit down and talk to you a little bit.
Nice. You said you had your kid this morning, or you worked this morning? Before you taught in all of it? You did everything this morning?
Both. Yeah, both my full-time and my other full-time job. So yeah, I got up at 5 a.m., went and taught a Muay Thai class at Easton in Centennial. And then I came back home, woke up the kids, got my 10-year-old and my 14-year-old both ready for school, took them to school, came back, and here I am. So it's been a full day already.
Wow. I don't teach early morning classes. I can relate to the rest of it. I get up early, but I don't teach and then come back and do that. That's a whole new ballgame. You're an animal. How close is the school to your house?
This is a running joke with me and all my friends, is that I pretty much plan everything within a 5-mile radius from my house. So everything's relatively close by. If things go wrong, it's pretty easy to adjust and adapt. The kids' school is less than 10 minutes away. The academy is less than 10 minutes away. I get my car fixed less than 10 minutes away. Dentist is less. I like to keep it close, keep it all nice and close by.
Yeah. That's like a rule of thumb. So when I'm looking at where to open schools and how I've decided on a lot of this, it's like, okay, what people are willing to drive 3 to 5 miles, right? Or, roughly 10 to 15 minutes in the suburbs, maybe a little bit longer if they live in the city because they're more used to that kind of driving. So I do think about when we're looking at a new location, like what does it look like for these individuals? So even Longmont, when we were opening Longmont, I was pushing back on it because like we found this great building, but Longmont's like this perfect square, right? This square. And I live way over in this corner and I wanted to open it on this side really bad. We found a building at the very opposite end. And it's not bad. It's a 15 to 20 minute drive, but I was like pushing so hard to not get it. Like, let's keep looking in this area. But this building was perfect. So it was hard for me. I'm like, oh. And then extra 5-10 minutes for me is like, I don't go as often as I should because of that. So I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, you don't make as many of those little quick trips. But it's amazing to me. Members surprise the heck out of me all the time because they'll tell me, oh yeah, well, it takes about a half hour for me to get to the academy. I'm like, wow, this is like your second class today. That's amazing to me that people will have that level of commitment because I don't know that I would. Like, when I first started training, the academy was even closer to where I live. I could have walked there easy. It's just a tiny bit further away now, but yeah, I'm kind of a wuss when it comes to that. I probably wouldn't drive a half hour back and forth to the academy. It's terrible. But a lot of our members do. And I'm like always so really in awe of that. I love it.
I think it shifts too. Like I think, when I was a young member and for the first 8 years, I would have done heaven and earth to get to all the training sessions. I'd drive 2 hours to get somewhere just because I wanted to train all the time. I'd have a car for a while and I'd skateboard, whatever I could to get to jiu-jitsu. And then it became like my full-time job. And I still spent a lot of time there, but it's been 20 years. And now it's like, it's not quite as easy because I'm not quite as motivated to get to the mats or get my kids to the mats as I was when I was like really, really, and it wasn't my job as well, So I can relate to that. But if I go trail running, I'll drive an hour in the morning, go 6 hours on a trail, and then drive an hour back. And that's a whole day gone, but I'm new at it, right? I'm sure 5 years down the road, I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to change how I do all this. So I don't know. I think it's shifting priorities too. And maybe some people are just different.
Yeah. I think family changes it too. You're the more commitment and priorities that you have at home, the less time you're willing to spend en route.
Oh yeah. That's a big. Our schools are one's across the street, the other one's a 5-minute drive. I know exactly how to get there, how to make it if it's going to be too long, and I love it. Amazing. Sorry. So what brought you to Easton originally, other than the short distance it was to your house?
So I think it was, you could call it a midlife crisis. I wouldn't say a crisis, but I was 40 and I had driven past Easton Training Center many times and really didn't know what was going on inside of there. But something drew me to that place. I don't know. I can't exactly put my finger on it, but I wanted to know what was going on inside of that place. And I did walk up and look in a couple of times before I actually opened the door. And one day I opened the door and went in and talked to somebody. They were really cool. They called me back and I went in for a class. And, fast forward a few months, I still didn't know what the hell was going on, right? Those first few months, you're just like, where do I put my hands? I don't know what I'm doing. But
and you started in jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai?
I actually did a Muay Thai class the first night I went, jiu-jitsu class the next night I went. And then that first few months that I trained, it was pretty much equal. I was doing Muay Thai 2 nights a week, jiu-jitsu 2 nights a week, something like that.
Wow. Maybe it was it was the mustard stand colored logo that you just can't escape.
Yeah.
That yellow and red.
I have some sort of magnetic attraction to that color. I think that's what it is.
I think everybody does. I can't not see that logo wherever I go in the country. I'll be in Georgia and I'll see our sticker. I'm like, damn, that's crazy. That's so cool. They called you back. I think that's
they called me back. I was like, wait, are you like, do you want me to come back? That like, are you sure I'm not gonna like bring you down in any sort of way? I was like, a little older, even then there were even fewer women training than, way fewer than there are now.
How old were you when you started?
40.
Okay.
And I was in decent shape. I had been doing like some boot camps to try to stay in shape, but I just couldn't keep my attention. I got bored easily of the exercise groups. And while I liked it, like I liked the way it made me feel, I guess it wasn't stimulating my mind as well as my body. So martial arts, obviously, like it is taxing on both the body and the mind. You have to be so focused on what is being said that there's like literally nothing else is going on while you're in training. And that really attracted me to the training. But like I said, I don't know. I mean, knowing myself at that stage of my life, if I hadn't gotten that call back, or like the people in the building who made it a point to know my name and look at me and say, Kate, it's great to see you training tonight. Like, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have stuck around. So that really mattered a lot to me to feel like I was welcome into the community.
I know this isn't an Easton Online business podcast, but I think this is like one of the things that we try to talk about a lot, like that I really believe in. I know Amal and Elliot and all the other leadership does. Like, we want to be excellent customer service, like high end, like not high end, but like we know we're going to do. Once you get on the mat, it's going to be hard. Like, we're going to take care of you, but you're going to get broken. Your ego's going to break, and you're going to hate life. You're going to have days you go home and cry, whatever it is, because you get punched in the face because class was so hard, because the instructor was in a bad mood, because your partner sucked, your partner smelled. Like, It's just life, right? Like, you can't control the mat, right? And we know that. So the goal is like, let's make every experience up to that moment easy. Like, even the intro, like, hey, this is going to be hard, but let's make your first few months easy. And then we make it a little bit harder. And because of that, we make something that's like kind of, it's not really meant to be inclusive, because like how many people want to roll around on the mat or get punched in the face? Like, it's a very rare thing. But because of our introduction into it, because of our customer service, because of our front desk, because of our follow-up processes, we make it so everybody gives it a shot. And that's our goal. Like, I reach out to so many places, on whether it's on a web lead, a phone call, and I never get a phone call back. I never message back, or maybe one, and I miss it, and they never call back again. And I really wanted that service, but because I'm so busy, because there's so much going on in my life, I never follow up, and I never get the service that I wanted, because I just let it go. Well, I reached out, it didn't happen, oh well. And then I missed the opportunity of something that I really wanted to do. I own that, right? But we have the ability to, like, hey, we're going to call you to get your ass. You came in, that means you were interested. You may be scared, you may be busy, but we're going to keep bothering you, because you should at least try to see if you like this, to see if it's meant for you. And that's what we try to do different at Easton. It's like, man, let's get your ass in here no matter what. And then you can decide you don't like it later on. But let's fucking try. We try to make that easy for people. And I'm really cool. That's the experience. That's like great. That is the experience you had. Like, remembering your name, actually giving a fuck. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it can feel super overwhelming to walk into a place where, people are rolling around on the floor, might have like crazy athletes. They are really good at what they're doing, right? They look really confident. And you're like this person who doesn't even understand the words that are coming out of the instructor's mouth at this point. But to have somebody there who, is one of those strong people reach out to you and let you know that, like, you're important to come back, that's everything. Like, that opens the door to literally anybody. Anybody can train martial arts. It's just, are you willing to do the tough stuff? But yes, the door is open. And I love that about Easton, is like, we're not trying to only bring in the people who fit like some sort of perfect mold. Like, anybody can do it, but it's not going to be easy. You have to have this stuff inside, and we'll help you build that stuff to help you get through all the toughness that's ahead.
Yeah, that is like so spot on to how it happens. Like, you can have that athlete that comes in and does well for a few years or a year or two, and then over time they don't, because their ego gets in the way. And the person that was just sort of mediocre, that wasn't athletic, they stuck with it. They learned the technique. They got tougher. They eventually can overcome that athletic person. And I think that's a really cool thing. Like, you're just not going to be. You may be good at first, right? You may enter just because you're athletic, but over time, that will not stick with you unless you decide to drop the ego and get better on whatever side of the mat that is. That's really cool. How did you become a coach?
I remember talking to the GM at the time and just offhand saying, hey, I would love to be a coach someday. And when I said it, I really hadn't thought about it that much, but I just happened to have the opportunity to talk one-on-one. It's like, I'd love the chance to be a coach someday. And I don't know, maybe it was 6 months, 8 months later, the coach of one of the classes that I took all the time had to do something. And, granted, this was a long time ago. This wouldn't happen today. But
it might.
You never know.
Size of the school.
But so I was approached, and they said, hey, any chance you would want to coach this class? And I was like, okay, are you sure? And they were like, yes, how about today? Why don't you send me a couple of notes on what you want to teach? And it kind of worked out that way. I filled in once or twice. I did get some good training after that. But yeah, I think I was maybe an orange shirt at the time. And I started coaching a kickboxing class and taught that class for a while. I think after teaching kickboxing for a while, then there was an opening for a kids Muay Thai instructor. So I did that. One thing that I love about Easton is that, every time someone moves into another position, that opens up the window for someone else to take on a new role. And that's kind of the way it happened for me. I know now, like, leading the striking department, it's a little bit more formal. I mean, I'm not out there looking at people, our members, all the time thinking that person seems like they would be a really good coach. And so I'll have that conversation with them, talk about it for a few months, maybe see what their availability looks like, and then we'll just start them shadowing a class. So they'll shadow an instructor for at least 10 classes, and then they'll co-teach for 10 classes. And then they'll take their own class and be shadowed by an instructor for 10 classes. And so by the time they take on their own class, they're so confident in their abilities to teach that they just crush it.
Yeah, it still happens like that occasionally. Like if it's a newer school, and like that's where all of us came from. Like everybody that, I mean, not everybody. We definitely have more systems now in place the past few years, but most martial arts schools, it's the consistent student that comes that shows that they love it, and they show they have a connection with people, and they show that like a love for the technique, and that's where most people step into this world, and that's what makes martial arts really cool. Like how we find instructors. We have we're super fortunate because we have a massive pool of people to pull from, thousands of students, and you find diamonds in the rough that way. And that's like, we always try to find people within because we know them, we know their values, we know who they are, we know how they treat students, we know how they act inside and outside the academy after knowing them for years, So it's so easy to find instructors because of that. And they don't even know they want to be instructors sometimes. Like sometimes they won't even ask, and you'll approach them and be like, hey, man, would you ever be interested in teaching? Like, yeah, like, all right. Or they'd be like, no, I don't know. And then they get out there and they perform so well because they have that imposter syndrome. So they prepare an extra amount. Like the one that says, I want to teach, let me teach, I can do anything. They can often suck. But the one that's like unsure of themselves, they prepare so hard for the role and for the job that they come out and they perform and they knock it out of the park. And it's like those are the people we always look for, the ones that aren't always that sure of themselves, the ones that have imposter syndrome, and because I don't know, that's one of the beautiful things about martial arts. It creates and builds confidence in so many levels. So I like that.
One thing that I found over time is, some of the best athletes they kind of fall flat as instructors. Maybe it didn't come as difficult to them as it did for someone else, right? But the person who had to do 1 million reps of something is going to be way better equipped to teach that than someone who only had to do like 100 reps of it to get it looking really good, right? I find that all the time with our instructors. They don't have to be the toughest in the room. They just have to be the person who had the grit to keep doing it over and over and over again, so that makes them just so much more capable of using like smart teaching cues and ways of describing things to the students.
And there is something you brought up, like I totally agree. There's something you brought up about like you were interested in teaching and 6 months passed and all of a sudden they asked if you wanted to teach and you said yes. And I think one thing that's really important, we obviously interviewed a bunch of people for the GM role, right? For the position that you got. And there were some young ones, there were some people in their 30s. There was a whole group of individuals that wanted the job. They all interviewed. And just like in sports, like varsity, junior varsity, front line, second line, third line, fourth line, you never know when the opportunity is going to come. Because it comes all the time, because life happens to everybody. And it's like what we try to tell everybody is like, just be patient. Like, don't be entitled and think you deserve the role. Because if we get even a hint of that, you're probably never going to get the job, or you have a lot of growth to do. Any entitlement that comes with it will almost immediately remove you from that crowd again, because we don't want to work with people that are entitled. I know I don't, right? So the biggest thing are the people that are extremely humble and patient. Just be patient, because then all of a sudden that opportunity pops up. You're like, oh shit, I was doing my dishes and somebody gave me a phone call, and I was like, oh my god, what? And be grateful for the individuals that get the job before you. Like, I think this is a super important thing that people forget or miss in this process. Playing years of sports, I learned this in football. Like, I'd be like second line, third line. I was like, when am I getting my opportunity? And then somebody gets hurt, I got my opportunity, and it's like, boom. Like, Tom Brady's the perfect example. Drew Bledsoe gets hurt, Tom Brady jumps in and just takes over the NFL. And he's been a player that nobody looked at forever. Like, there's a good example of somebody that just stayed patient, stayed good, got better and better and better. When his opportunity came, love him or hate him, he took over and just killed it. And I think gratitude, humility, and patience are key for any position and anything in the world, honestly. But
yeah, I mean, you got to do your best work all the time. Always do your best work. That doesn't mean you're going to get rewarded with anything in that moment. But like you said, patience, it's funny you said that, because that was the word that was right on the tip of my brain too. Like, you've got to be so patient, but keep doing your best work and keep working to acquire new experiences. The opportunity is going to be there. I mean, with me taking this position, now there's a department head position open, right? And when that gets filled, there's probably going to be an instructor position opening up. There's so many things that, so many opportunities available within our academies. It's crazy. Just always do your best, and the opportunity is going to be available to you before you know it.
Yes. Patience is key, and like, be excited about the work you have to do, not because of what it's going to get you, which is obviously hard, right? We all struggle as humans. Like, we have this need to get to the goal, get to the end, get to the finish line. But if you think about that, I don't know, I just did that, not to plug this race, but I just did a 100-mile race, first time ever. And it took 35 hours. And I remember like wanting to die at mile 50. And it's like, man, I can't, my wife was pacing me and she's like, you can't think about that. You have to get through this. And like, just keep trudging along, like wanted to die. It's like, that really taught me about patience. But like, I remember there was 1 mile left of the race. It was a 102-mile race, 1 mile left. The sun is going down, and it was the hardest mile of my life. 1 mile after 101 of them, I was like, I was like, I want to be done. I could barely move. It was the longest mile of my entire life. And it's funny because my patience had worn out at that point. But that's what got me through the race, because I couldn't think about getting to the finish line anymore. There's no thinking about that when you have 98 miles in front of you still or something, you know? So big lessons there. All right. One more question kind of in this vein. What is your favorite part about Easton and or Muay Thai?
Oh, I mean, my favorite part about Muay Thai is, I just love to punch and kick stuff. Right?
Don't we all?
It's not that complicated. It's just so much fun. No, but really, aside from that, when I'm training, I get to be completely focused on that task in front of me and nothing else. And it's an incredibly effective form of therapy, break. It's a great mental break for you, because your mind is focused on that. There's really nothing else that can be occupying your thoughts at that point. But also, getting a little bit older, like, it's very important to do focus exercises, and martial arts is incredible for that.
Yeah, I would agree. There's nothing, if you're like depressed or have anxiety, I feel like when you're training in Muay Thai Jiu-Jitsu, it goes away because you can't think about it anymore. It's not like the car drive where you can, fade out, or lifting or running, or even reading a book, you can sort of start getting distracted. But in the martial arts, it is so singularly focused that it's so challenging not challenging, it's so cathartic to like let your brain stop thinking, especially as you get a few years in,
Yeah. And it has to be that way, right? Because if you lose focus even for a second, like, you're taking a cross to the face, or you're getting ankle locked or something like that, right? I mean, you must focus. There's no other option.
Unless there's skill levels too. Like you can definitely be hanging out with somebody just playing with them because you're so far beyond them, or vice versa.
I don't know
You
what
feel
that
like you're getting
feels
played
like.
with.
What? Does
Right.
that happen? Do you feel
No,
like
I'm
that?
making that up. I'm making that up. Okay. GM position. All right. So Kate took over the GM position. I'm going to ask some like really obvious questions because I really want to know your thoughts on it because this is a big deal for us. So I guess the first one is kind of broad. What comes to your mind when you think about taking over as the Centennial GM? Like what pops up in your head?
Oh gosh, I, I feel like that person walking in the door the first time and just thinking, I mean, that was almost 12 years ago. I walked in and started training for the first time. I just think about in a capsule my experience going from being completely new and not knowing what to expect to, going through some of the difficulties in training, training to compete, uh, being an instructor, getting into the leadership role, all of that kind of encapsulated. So it's a long way of saying I'm just thinking about that life cycle. And I'm now at a point where I have this opportunity to see that person walking in the door the first time and helping to develop them into potentially this GM role, I mean, somebody's going to walk in that door and that person is going to become the GM someday, or they're going to be a great competitor. Maybe they'll go to the Olympics. Maybe they'll be a great instructor or one of our leadership team. But I think about everybody who walks in our doors as having that kind of potential, and that's I think my overarching focus as a general manager is just being able to see the potential in every single person that walks through the door.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really excited to see where this journey takes you, the ups and downs. Uh, I know you're coming with like more experience than most of the GMs as far as like in life and other jobs too. Like a lot of the GMs get hired on in their 20s, some in their early 30s, uh, but which means they've usually been in martial arts most of the time. And they've had like not a lot of professional jobs. Like, well, how do I say like when I say professional, like jobs that require high levels of professionalism. Not that we do, but more so obviously than working in the kitchen or blue collar work. To an extent, there's a mix, I guess. And I know you're bringing a lot to the table because you worked in the corporate world for a long time. You've raised a family or raising a family. Most of our GMs had kids while they were GMing, um, it's just a whole different group of stuff. And I think you're going to bring a lot of experience to the table. So I was thinking like the skill sets you've had, the life experience that you're bringing to the table. How do you think that will benefit the community overall at Centennial, as well as like the Easton group? And I mean that like the general managers, right? A bunch of, they're wonderful human beings, but also can be clowns. And then, which most of us can be because we try to be real, but also like the other leadership teams. So kind of Centennial, the GMs, the other leadership. What do you think you can bring to the table with your skill sets and experience?
Oh, I, gosh, I I've honestly learned a lot from my leaders. I mean, Professor Peter was an amazing mentor and leader for me. Uh, so he really has taught me a lot. But my prior experience, it's just simply has helped me to not get too uptight about things that go wrong. I mean, that's the biggest thing I think is just not letting things get under my skin too much. Life experience will do that for you. So, I have that just by way of being around a little bit longer. That's it. Um, I think, you know, people are going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. Um, we're doing the best we can. And I think that the life experience that I have is just going to help me to not get too, oh God, like I'm dying here.
Yeah, I know. You're
Phipps,
nailing it. I know.
cut it.
No,
Uh,
no, no. I know you're gonna say. I think what you're pointing out here is like you're not to get too wrapped up in the bullshit. You can curse, by the way. I know you want to throw those curses
I
in.
do, but I don't know. All right.
Yeah, that's why I try to curse early on so everybody can. And by the way, I didn't start saying curse till about 5 years ago because I'm from the East Coast, so swear was what I would say.
Oh,
but it's family.
It's not cuss.
Now I say
do you ever
no
cuss?
curse or
Okay.
cuss. That's my wife says that because she's from Georgia.
Okay.
But from Boston, it's like swearing. We say swearing. But yeah, let that shit fly.
I forgot you were
it's that is like that's the superpower, right? For me, that is like the biggest superpower is and in Buddhism, I think it's like don't get caught up in your shempa, which means don't get caught up in your bullshit. And when somebody says something, right? Like, man, people say stupid shit all the time. We're humans. And the goal with Easton is to say, hey, nothing is about you, right? It's about Easton. And now if you're fucking up, yeah, that's on you. But we're mad at you fucking up, not because we're mad at you. We're mad because it's fucking up Easton. So like when we're dealing with shit, when we're dealing with, hey, I need you to do this. I need you to improve upon this. Hey, you got to keep this person accountable. Hey, I need you to show up a little bit earlier because early is on time. Here are our principles. Here are our values. Like we're trying to hold you to these standards. And people are like, well, or hey, you didn't get the job because of X, Y, Z. Man, it's not about you. It's about Easton. It's always about Easton, right? No matter what. And that comes first. And if you can take that like idea, like, oh shit, this isn't about me. They want this to improve Easton and for all these people that come to it and for the longevity of the company and the organization, then you don't need to take it personally, right? But as human beings, we're so conditioned to take everything personally. So I think having that level head and being able to show up day in and day out, whether it's in the GM group, whether it's for your staff and team, whether it's for the students, whether it's in like one of our side projects like the Easton Opens, like being able to show up to the table. If somebody says something stupid, or even if you say something stupid, it's okay. Just fucking let that shit roll off your back. Life's too short. Remember, we're all going to die. None of this matters anyway. So I think that is a massive superpower that most people don't have. And I think it really, like there's some enlightened human beings that get it in their like 20s and 30s, like Ian Lieberman. He's one that I can think of. He's very good about not taking shit personally, no matter what it is. But 95% of us that are in our 30s or below, I mean, I'm in my 40s now, take shit personally first. And then it takes a minute. And then as we get better at it, it goes from taking it personally for a couple days, and then a day, and then a few hours, and then an hour, and then 10 minutes, and then a minute, and then like 10 seconds. You're just like, okay, I'm over it. And like, I think that's the goal. Shorten that window of how long you take shit personally. Because man, holding that weight, life's too short, and it's not worth it because it's not about you. And I think what you said is one of the most important things that you can bring, especially on a team, right? Especially in a team of like of the team you're joining. Everybody's amazing in their own way, but having that as your superpower, I think will really change the way the dynamics work.
Yeah, I think it is so easy to feel like you have to be right? And then you realize how much extra energy you're using just hanging on to that need to be right? But we work as a team here. Like we're just trying to get to the right answer or the right solution. It doesn't fucking matter whether I'm right or you're right, or maybe I'm totally wrong, but it helped us to figure something out. That's really all that matters, right?
Yeah.
So
strong convictions held loosely. You know what I mean? What happens, a lot of people have these convictions that shouldn't, they're just like an idea they had, not even like really well thought out. And they hold on to them so tight because they don't want to be wrong. It's like, man, you can have strong convictions, right? And you should hold them loosely, but don't have like this idea. This is what drives me the craziest. Like, what about this? And they haven't really put much thought into it. Don't have much evidence. And they'll hold on to it super tight because they just want to be right. Because they think it makes them dumb if they're wrong. But what they don't realize, they push everybody away when they have that kind of response to things. Like, man, just let the fuck go. And I always go back to Ian. He's so good at like, Ian and I fight a lot. We're best friends, but I'm also by far the hardest on him than anybody in the company because I can be. Because he's so brilliant and has the ability to just hear things. Even if it rubs him the wrong way, he can let it wash over him and then figure out how he wants to handle it. And I just think we could all do with a little more of that. And so I'm excited that you're going to be bringing that to the table. Any challenges do you think that, there's got to be plenty of challenges. What challenges do you think you'll face as the new GM?
I think that right now we are in a place where we're rebuilding our level of excellence in competition. So I know that it takes some time to get people kind of back in that mode of competition, readiness and awareness, and that extra little bit of courage that it takes to get into the first competition, and then that grit and grind that it takes to sacrifice and train for comps. That's tough. And I see so much talent and so much hard work in our member community, but I think that in Centennial, we could definitely be making some different choices in order to get people into those higher levels of competition. So I'm psyched for that, but I know it's going to be a lot of hard work.
Good. And what do you think will help you with that job, that challenge?
Yeah, we have some very high level competitors on our staff. We have Mallory Martin is the head of our jiu-jitsu program. She's the department head. We can definitely use her experience and all of her knowledge of not only the martial arts themselves, both striking and jiu-jitsu, because she's fucking phenomenal at both, but just her understanding of what it takes to be a high level competitor. It's not for the weak of heart by any stretch of the imagination. So I think that she can help the rest of our instructor team and our leadership team to plot out what it might look like for someone who's an amateur level competitor at this point.
I like that. I like that you have resources in-house that you can use. I think that's going to be key, right? Like, what is the goal? One of the goals is like always hire people in the position that are better than you at the job. That's really the goal of a general manager, of a leader. Like, who fills this gap that's better than me? And that, not saying they're better than you, but that's how I always think about what it is. Like, okay, Sean knows way more than me about Muay Thai. I shouldn't be a program director in Muay Thai or kids or jiu-jitsu. Like, who are those individuals that shine and show that they're excellent at these things that I can help and guide with overall decisions and remove obstacles for them? But they're the ones that can really handle the details of how it should be done. So, yeah.
I love that.
This is the obvious question that I really want to ask, right? Like, you're going to be our first female general manager, right? And we only have one other Muay Thai GM, Matt Bloss. So you're going to be our first female, second Muay Thai GM on a team of 8. We have some other females in leadership on the HQ. We have Sarah and Van out of a team of 5 for HQ. And then the program directors are currently all men. But that usually happens because if you look, and we've tried really hard at Easton, like, we're a meritocracy. I don't give a fuck what gender you are. We hire on meritocracy no matter what. But we also try to make things more inclusive. Like, if we have an all males club, it's going to be really hard to have females want to enter that males club. Like, I feel very awkward going to get a pedicure. right? Like, I'm like, I really want to get a pedicure and manicure, but I've never gotten one because I feel like all awkward and weird going in there. It's all ladies. Like, so how do we make this my random, uh, how do we make it so like everybody feels comfortable coming into the facility, right? And I think we've done that with a lot of females on the mats on both sides, but it's been a challenge, you know, from Allie Redmond to Beth Huddleston to Amy Fidelis to there's just so many I could name. Kate Eischen. How do we get it so we want more opportunities for females to be on leadership because it helps the dynamic, you know, of different genders in the room and different perspectives, ages, different martial arts. But again, because we hire meritocracy, only have a certain amount of pool to pull from. And for the past 20, you know, and maybe more recently, not as much, jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai was very heavily male dominated. So like when you look at the pool, okay, like let's say there's a job opening, there's 10 candidates, maybe one of them is female that wants to be it. If they don't meet what needs to be to fit that role, then one of the men's going to get the job. It just made more sense that male men ended up in these roles because of the pool was mostly men. You crushed the interview. Like, to be honest, like we didn't have you first picked. Like we had ideas in our head. And then the interview, like after we interviewed you, we were like, holy shit, we know that Kate is the one. Like there was no, it was Ian's decision, but it was like, man, there is no other person we can put in this role after interviewing Kate. And I talked to her during the interview. I was like, I told you, I was like, I don't give a shit what gender you are, Kate. Like, it doesn't fucking matter to me. I'm not here to create a popularity contest. I want the best person for the job, period. And, you know, and that was you. No doubt about it. Hands down. So I said all that because I wanted to get that out for the public. But yeah, back to the question. You're going to be our first female GM and second Muay Thai GM. What is, tell me your thoughts on that.
Look, I mean, I truly believe that the general manager doesn't have to be the toughest person in the building. You know, we're there to make sure that the Easton core values are being adhered to all the way around, that the place looks amazing, that we're given the highest level of martial arts instruction that you can find anywhere in the world. Like all of that falls in the GM's lap. But whether I'm you know, I love it that I'm, you know, representing Muay Thai, and I love it that I'm representing, you know, all of our female community. But I mean, at the end of the day, like as a general manager, I'm just trying to make sure that the academy runs the best that it possibly can. So, I mean, those things are great representation of what's possible. I don't know. Is it going to make me a better general manager? I don't know. You know, it's just who I am. I mean, that's just what my story is. And I'm really glad that I'm able to represent the fact that you can be a female and train, you know, 10 plus years, and an opportunity like this can become available to you if you've worked really, really hard all the way through your career. And this is a commitment that you want to make, you know. It's not, yeah. You know, it's not like, well, here you go, you're a general, congratulations, you're a general manager. It's like, you get this,
here you go, here's a huge bag of shit,
right? Like, here's like more work than you can even imagine is now yours to now. Everything that goes wrong, like it's basically your responsibility to figure it out. You know, I think this is a really tough job, and as far as I don't know, like I said, I feel like I love it that Muay Thai is being represented again. You know, Coach Matt Bloss, he's been the GM up in Boulder for a while, so that's been really cool to see him in that role. He kind of broke that glass ceiling in terms of Muay Thai versus all of our other GMs are jiu-jitsu black belts, right?
Yeah, Matt took over from me. I was the GM at Boulder, and Matt took my job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's crushed it.
So, I mean, that's pretty cool. Um, First female, that's great. We'll have more female GMs coming up after me. I'm sure of it, because when I look at my leadership team in Centennial, they're all females. Every single one of our leadership team is a woman.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that, this isn't something that can happen overnight. It's something that's happened over decades. Right? I mean, if Easton hadn't been a community where women can grow, get really good at martial arts, take on instructor roles and leadership roles, I wouldn't be here now, right? If a few years ago I didn't get the opportunity to be in a leadership role at the department head level. So
Yeah.
This is, I think, just a result of choices that have been made over a really long period of time. So I'm glad that I'm representative of that, but it's, there are a lot of female leaders in our community, and it could have been any number of those people.
I fucking want to pause everybody to listen. I fucking love Kate's humility. You put her on the spot with this question, and it's like, she's like, fuck, man, just goddamn, I'm stoked to be here. I don't know if it has to, I appreciate the way you don't, it just shows like this gratitude, but also like this like, man, I'm just fucking doing what I do, and this is what happened. I'm stoked. And that's like one of the main reasons we're like, man, Kate is for this job, like just one foot in front of the other. All right, let's pivot. I know we could stay on that forever, but I feel like we crushed it there. So I'm going to ask a few of these questions. I only have like 15 minutes left, so Phipps will yell at me. So this one is just so people get to know you a little bit. What does your life look like outside of Easton? I know you said you're a mom, so maybe, whatever.
Yeah, my mom. I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old daughter, and they're in middle school and elementary school, respectively. Have a husband, Matt, and honestly, like, with his support, I'm going to be able to do this as a parent. It'd be tough, I think, to be in a general manager role without having that support at home, with kids in school, especially because they don't drive yet. So I'm like, the other job that I have right now is as a taxi driver, for sure. I mean, I'm in the car, like, going back and forth between activities and school all the time. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say about that.
You're like, I'm a taxi driver, and I spend time at Easton, and I got a husband named Matt. That's amazing.
Oh, I also have pets. Would you like to hear about my pets?
Yes, I want to know. Okay. Everybody has.
I have a dog named Bojo. He's a shepherd mix, and he is absolutely attached to me. He's follows me around all the time whenever I'm working from home. And then we have a cat, Diego, who is a great tabby mix. He's also
I got
one
two
of the
dogs
coolest
and a cat.
cats ever.
That's amazing. Indoor, outdoor cat?
Both.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, we've gotten some shit from the neighbors.
We do too.
He used to harass one of our neighbors and would like sit outside of their window and just meow because they had a cat in there. And the neighbor, oh my gosh, was so mad and actually like accused our cat of causing their cat severe anxiety, and like it was a whole thing. So we had to try to keep him inside for a while, and then he just wasn't having it. So he always found his way outside, and now he just uses the doggy door. So,
dude, I know there's a big debate on indoor cats versus outdoor cats, and outdoor cats kill all these animals and all that, and blah blah blah. I get it; it's bad. But man, once you have an outdoor cat versus an indoor cat, that outdoor cat is the happiest. And I don't want to make fun of other people. I know there's things with indoor cats, so this is like a whole political thing. But our cats became outdoor cats, and they became the coolest animals in the world. And I'm like, so it's hard for me to.
Yeah, you can't rein that in. Once they get a taste of the outdoors too, they're like, mm-mm.
And they die early. That's one thing. Our cats, they don't live as long as they would. If they make it to 12 years, they're stoked.
Yeah.
Versus,
But they 18. Really lived,
They really live, man. They live. All right. These are the questions I always pull. I pull random ones, trying to find ones that fit the person, and I want to know more about them. And you may not have answers. You can pass if you don't know it, or just make something up, whatever you want. So, who do you look up to and why, or who has been the most influential person in your life?
Ooh.
And it's up to you.
All right. I would say that my dad has been the most influential person in my life. He kind of broke a mold, left the city, Baltimore City, where he grew up, and bought a farm in Pennsylvania, not having a clue how to farm. He learned, he did his research, and this was in the days of you can't just Google it. He did his old school research, how to farm cattle, pigs, horses, chickens on this plot of land in Pennsylvania. And that's where I got to grow up as a younger, up until about age 10, got to grow up on this farm, and it was amazing. But while he was learning how to be a farmer, he was also working a full-time job for the U.S. government, for Social Security Administration. And he did that for, his entire career, 35 years. But in addition to all that, he also just always had a passion for law enforcement. And so he, on his own time, went out and went to the police academy, became a deputy, eventually became the chief of police for the town where we lived, and did all that while he still, managed this full-time job down in Baltimore City at Social Security, which is just blows my mind.
And he had a farm.
And also had a farm.
And was he a present dad too, around, or?
Yeah, yeah. We did all kinds of stuff together. I remember especially when he was in the police academy that he wasn't around as much, but we just did stuff together. We would do the farming together. He would take me for ride-alongs occasionally in his police car. It was the coolest thing. So yeah, he was pretty amazing. And I can't imagine how much guts it took to take those kind of risks in that day and age.
That is incredible. You've told me pieces of that before, and every time I get teary-eyed, I'm like, oh, I want to be a dad like that. That's incredible. Wow. Okay. What is an experience that significantly shaped who you are today? Is there anything in particular you could point at, this moment or this period in time?
Pass.
How do you handle life's uncertainties and challenges?
I try to hold, I don't try to go to the worst case scenario right away. I prefer to deal in facts. The what ifs are okay, well, I can say, okay, well, what if this, then this, what if this, then this, that's fine. But I'm not going to get too emotionally invested in any of the eventualities or the possibilities until I know more, or until I know that that's something that I'm going to be dealing with. I'm not going to get too upset about it. You know what I mean? So, oh my God, what was the question? How did I get there?
No, that was good. I said, how do you deal with uncertainties and challenges
Oh,
that come upon you.
like, what am I telling? Why am I saying this right now? Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And I think that's a good point. Like, because you can take that question any way you want, right? But I think one of the big things that you're looking at is like, what I hear is like your process for it. So like, if something comes at you, like if I get hit by somebody, right? Or if somebody hits my car, I'm like, that motherfucker. I don't do that, right? I'm like, okay, cool. That person hit me. Okay. Are they okay? Am I okay? Cool. All right. Is there damage? Yes. No. Cool. Do we need to call the cops? Yes. No. Cool. Like, go through the processes. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, my car is ruined. What am I going to do about next week? Because there's no point in like diving down the rabbit hole when you can just deal with the problems that are in front of you, and then you slowly answer those problems.
It's funny. I remember in high school, we had this class called safety ed, and it was taught by this guy, Mr. Burley, I think. And he was the best. He had this whole thing, and I'm going to kind of butcher it, but it was remain calm, assess the entire situation, right? And then there are a couple other things, but the most important two things are remain calm and assess the entire situation, right? And then we can start to figure out priorities. What do we need to do first, second, third, fourth, right? But yeah, I mean, I think that remaining calm is a superpower, and that is something that helps me to sort out how I want to proceed with a situation. So I love that. Thank you, Mr. Burley. I really appreciate all of that you taught us.
Remaining calm is so weird because I'm a pretty unpredictable person, and I can have a temper. And like when somebody says something stupid, I don't do a very good job remaining calm. I'm like, what the fuck is like in my head? I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It shows. I'm like, did you think that through? Or like, if I hear something that an employee does, I'm like, you fucking kidding me? Like, I get really mad, right? That's just, and I really think that's because it's a conditioned thing that like when I was younger, like, yeah, show how tough you are by saying blah, 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 blah. I really believe it's conditioned because when I hear these things, I do get angry and I say stupid stuff and I lose my temper. But, and this isn't to like pat myself on the back, but in moments of like actual chaos, I definitely have the opposite approach. Like I totally calm down. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, so this week we were running and there was this lady in front of me and there was a tree across the trail with a branch and you're running with your head down because you're just like, you can't see with your hat. And I looked up and she's on the ground and I noticed she ran into the tree and I'm like, oh shit. And there's nobody else around because we're out in the middle of nowhere. And I went up right to her right away. I was like, hi, hey, how you doing? She's like, I'm okay. I'm like, that's good. So listen, you hit your head, right? And that's totally normal. Heads bleed a lot, right? She's like, I'm bleeding. Touch her head and there's blood just everywhere, just pouring out of her head, all over her hand. She's soaked in blood. I'm like, yes, but it's okay because this is what happens. You can't even see the scratch. I'm just trying to explain to her, like, head's cut. And like, let's go to the side of the trail. Here, I'll put this on. And we talk, and I keep wiping blood out. And there's so much blood. She has no idea how much there is.
She's like, why are you so calm right now?
Coated in red. And I'm like, well, let's just wipe this off. And then we just kept putting more and more things around her head until eventually the blood stopped. But it was like the stuff we had was like buffs and sleeves and shirt things. Just we kept ripping things off till it stopped. And they just kept pouring blood. And eventually we got it to stop, with pressure. And then I went back to the aid station with her. But it's always funny because I have such a quick reactive temper. I'm like a fucking pit bull sometimes, like, rah! And I don't like that about myself. But I do find in those moments of like getting hit by someone or whatever, I'm like, okay, let's figure out how to deal with this. I'm like the complete opposite. And I think that's more of my instinctive reaction, where like my in work reaction, like I used to smash chairs in the parking lot of Easton Boulder or punch holes in the wall when, somebody did something dumb when I was a GM. Hopefully GMs don't do that now. But I think it was just me trying to show I was tough. It's like this thing that I've curated. And it's embarrassing to say that out loud. So, yeah, I know what you mean about taking him by steps.
But yeah, I mean, when it really matters, you know how to take a second, assess the entire situation, right?
When it matters. I think when it doesn't is when I'm a child. So this is an interesting one. I'm curious what you say. You may pass it. What do you think the purpose of life is?
I think the purpose of life is to enjoy it and to help other people enjoy their life, whatever that may mean. We're not meant to drudge through every minute of life, I don't think. I think that it's meant to be lived to the fullest and enjoyed.
I'll double down on that one. What causes do you feel super strongly about, if any?
Pass.
What is something you love learning about?
I love learning about how people have persisted through really difficult situations, through tragedy. I love learning what people do when it just seems like things have completely fallen apart. And because we can't control everything in life, right? And stuff like that happens. And it's amazing to me sometimes how people figure out how to just put one foot in front of the other and keep going.
Why does that spark your like, why do you find that interesting or learning about that?
I have seen some tragedies like that in my life. I've had friends who have been in really like unspeakable type of a situation. I don't know if I honestly should talk about this, but a good friend and neighbor of mine, their brother killed their other brother the day before his wedding with a bow and arrow from a tree. And now this is too much. It's just too heavy. Yeah, like
No, it's okay.
Too much for this, but it's
no.
So, but yeah, I mean, just between you and me, like this family has persisted through this, right? They have lost a son and a brother, but my friend had to live, right? He eventually got married and had kids, but he's battled alcoholism his entire life since this situation, right? And now he's going through rehab and trying to deal with all of that that happened. The brother who killed the other brother, like, he was having a mental break, but they just didn't realize how bad it had gotten. And so that brother spent years in jail and trying to rehab. But the parents are still there, and they're like, what? We're mourning a son, and we're putting a son in jail, and like, but he's still alive. We still have to be parents to this son who did the most unspeakable thing to our other son. And now this is 20 years later. The dad passed away. The mom lives in the same house with the son who killed her other son and the older son. They're all back together, and they're farming together and just trying to live, and that's, you think like back when this all went down, I was like, how do you move? How do you wake up? How do you get out of bed the next day? Like, what do you even do? But I mean, I've seen her do it. It's just amazing. I don't know. It's just amazing to me. So I think like living with grief, that kind of thing is kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think this would be a good conversation with Ian as well. I think about like how easy it is to get caught up in your own trivial bullshit, you know, like somebody's driving too slow, or man, how am I going to pay bills this month? Or, and it's all relative, of course, right? It all feels heavy when it's happening. But the perspective shift is something that I always try to lean into. I don't get road rage because I think of these things a lot, like these like stoic exercises of like, well, okay, what if my child died tomorrow? You know, what would I do? And it's obviously a challenging exercise, of course, but it's like, well, there's other things that I have to do in this world that I'm responsible for. And I think I use those types of like the tragedies that people face are real, right? Like, and they don't only, they hurt them greatly, but if they survive through it and I don't know about thrive, but survive, they benefit so many people around them too. They're like, man, wow, look what they're so strong. And I feel like you can borrow their strength in those times that are hard for you. And it can put your life in perspective, like selfishly, if you use it that way. Obviously, like it can pull you out of being a victim, you know? And I think that is one of the stories like that, whether it's that or it's, you know, a war zone you read in the newspaper, you can use those to help you get out of your own bullshit too. And then in turn, help others get out of their bullshit. I think there's like this cyclical thing that comes with tragedy that can benefit all those around you as well. And it's like, how do you deal with that tragedy? Like when you get hit with that tragedy, how are you going to show up? How are you going to be the person that can help others with the struggle that you've been through? Right. And I think
that's a beautiful way to put it. And I think about it like when you're just in the middle of some bullshit and you're like, does this really matter? If I were fearing for my life or the life of my family right now, would this matter at all? If the answer is no, then like you can't let it occupy too much of your energy, right?
That's why there's that great little meme on Instagram. Hey all, before we start this meeting, I want to remind everyone that we're all going to die. Okay? Cool, let's get started. All right, I got a couple more. Well, no, let's just call on that one. Then we'll go to the closing because I feel like that was a good end there. All right, so this is the closing. I ask these same 3 questions every time, and then hopefully we won't go past an hour and 15. What are your favorite books, and what are you currently reading?
Okay, well, one of my favorite books is The Art of Learning. That was a book that one of my coaches gave me to read, and I was so fascinated by the concept at the time, especially of this is Josh Wakens, and he was like the next great chess player. Is just like a grew up as a kid, just was like genius chess player, right? And he grew up to get into martial arts, and he did jiu-jitsu for a long time actually, but he also was really involved, and the book talks a lot about him doing the push hands, which is formal martial arts. It's like Tai Chi, but it's the combat version of that. You see people in the park doing Tai Chi all the time, right? Something I would love to do in the future.
Me too. I feel like my body needs it, by the way. So bad. I want to do Tai Chi so bad. I feel like it's such a nice addition for the joints. Anyway.
But he talked a lot in that book about like the blink of someone's eye, or like the breath, like the inhale, and how you can start to anticipate their energy moving forward or moving backward based on those tiny movements or those tiny signals. And this is like the, old kung fu movie stuff, right? Where like, you're like, how did that just happen? And I believe that it is a real part of super high level martial arts, where you do get so in tune with your opponent that you can almost feel their breath from far away, or you can feel their movement or their energy in one direction or another. And I just hadn't ever, I just wasn't anywhere near that kind of a level at that point that I read that, but that just opened my mind up to that possibility. And from that point forward, have thought about that a lot in my training. Like, are they going to move forward? Are they going to move back? I'm not really looking at their feet, but I'm paying attention to the movement in their chest, that sort of thing. So I just love that book. Right now, I am about to read in this new role. I have 3 books that I am responsible for reading over the next couple of weeks. Radical Candor, Unreasonable Hospitality, and First 90 Days. So all of those are going to help me in this new position. So I'm psyched. I've heard a lot of amazing things about all 3 of those. So yeah, I'm going to be reading a lot. That's my part-time job over the next few weeks.
So yeah, I want to dive in on a couple things. So Art of Learning, it's about the 10,000 hour rule kind of thing. And if anybody wants to dive deeper on this stuff, like Malcolm Gladwell also wrote Outliers, which does a really good job doing research. It's a great companion book with Art of Learning. So if you read both of those together, and they're both great listens, they're fantastic. And then if you want to hear the other side of this, because the Art of Learning and Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers talks about the 10,000 hour rule and how it's really good for specific things like golf, right? It does an excellent job with golf because it's so specific, or violin practice because it's such specific training. But then there's the book Range by David Epstein, which talks about having a multitude of things as your background for different sports and how it can help you with different sports. So, or activities like chess, violin, and golf are excellent for the 10,000 hour rule, Art of Learning, Malcolm Gladwell Outliers. But David Epstein's book Range, which he wrote the book called The Sports Genes many years ago, but both very famous books. It talks about the other piece of this. So if you're not going to be a specialist, how like Roger Federer is the example. He didn't play tennis till he was a teenager, and he became the best in the world. Like him and Tiger Woods were considered the best, but Tiger started at 2 years old, or 10 months, and Federer started at 15. But he played all these sports, all these that helped him with so many different things that made him a better tennis player. So it's super interesting, what works for what. And if you're, in your 30s and you didn't try to do jiu-jitsu since you were 2, it doesn't mean you can't be great at it, or Muay Thai. It means that there's just other paths to get there. And I love those 3 books. I think they're excellent companions, and they're all great listens if you don't want to sit down and read them. And then the ones you brought up, Radical Candor and Unreasonable Hospitality are fantastic listens, great audio, and they're so helpful with how to give feedback and then what hospitality should look like. In the first 90 days, I use that as a textbook. I've given 10 of those away. And it's more of I take notes, and then you can actually follow the book during your 90 days. And that's what I did when I took over as the CEO. I bought that book from Jeff Bell gave it to me, Jake Bell. And I followed it step by step in that role, and it was super helpful. So I'm excited you're reading those. I didn't know what you were reading, but I'm excited those are on your plate. Do you have any feedback for me? I know you're new in this role, but you've been with me we talked a bunch the past few months in smoker stuff, and anything that comes to mind that I could use to be more useful?
Man, I love your energy. It is absolutely contagious, and it makes me want to do the very best job I can every time I, walk into the academy, or anytime I'm working on Easton related work. I love that in this role, just being completely honest is always encouraged. I haven't really been in a room where I've been afraid to speak my mind or to say what my opinion is on something, whether it's completely different from what everybody else is thinking, or if I'm right on the same page, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that we're all being genuine and adding, if we all thought the same thing, we would never grow, right? And that is absolutely encouraged. And that's because of you, because of the way that you encourage that level of directness and honesty. So I just really appreciate that.
Good. That's the only way I want to be, whether it sucks or not sometimes or not. But man, I hate being fake.
Just
I think this is
say what you want to say and let the chips fall where they may, right?
I think this is why I'm so shy. I have a hard time at parties. I have a hard time going into the academies now. Like I'm not there as much, and I'm like, I want to be me, but like, man, this person doesn't know me. Am I gonna say the wrong thing? I don't know. I'm so worried about, not worried, but I'm a shy person. I was thinking about getting a T-shirt made. Hi, I'm very shy. My name is Mike. I'm the president. Come say hi. Because I'm too scared to say it myself.
Don't make me come to you.
Oh, geez. Let's end on this one. What in your life, it doesn't have to be one thing, but what are you most grateful for in your life?
I'm most grateful for my family. I am very, very lucky to have two amazing kids who are spirited and funny and kind and helpful sometimes, and also really not helpful sometimes. No, I'm just kidding. They are awesome, and I am extremely lucky to have a partner who supports me in everything. And again, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like picture perfect, but it's really good and very solid. And I don't have to worry about it falling apart because I think we've been through a lot of ups and downs already. And, we've proven to each other that like we're in it for the long haul, and that really helps. It helps a lot just to not have to wonder like, oh no, like, are we going to be okay? Like we are going to be okay. I know we're going to be okay. Like we're solid as a rock, and that feels really good. So very grateful for my husband and for my kids and my family. Yeah.
I like how much of that
comfort
is about the journey, right? Like you're not saying there's something about the way you set all. Like I have 4 and 7 year olds, so they're like half the age of your kids, and I'll be I think the same age as you, or maybe a little bit younger when they're your age, and when they're your kids' age, and it's so interesting to see and hear that because like I feel like we've been together for 14 years, but we're feeling that moment in time. We do couples therapy because we want to connect more, and it's always hard, right? But it's always up and down. But there's that safety now that we're here for each other. And the kids, yeah, they're up and down, but man, just if you can embrace the whole journey and be part of it and present, even when you need your breaks, it really, it feels good to hear that. So I appreciate your sentiment.
Thank you.
Kate, thank you for your time. That was an amazing talk with you. I'm excited to work with you more on the GM role. If you see Kate on the mats, please congratulate her. She's fucking awesome. Real speak. We'll see you out there.
Thank you so much. Cool.